Brother John, thanks for coming here for Holy Rollers Mystic Podcast. We talked recent in the last year. You had the opportunity to read the Völuspá, which is kind of like a Viking scripture, you'd say, or Scandinavian scripture. Would you say that, friend?
Yeah.
Well, today I was hoping we could get a conversation going about the differences, but also the similarities between the Ragnarok end of the world battle that's described in the Völuspá and the similar kind of end of the world thought in Revelation. I think we just start with the beginning. There's certain images that I saw that in both readings that were interesting to me, and maybe you could speak to some of the things in the Völuspá. The idea of Gullveig, I think is her name. She's the goddess.
Yeah.
Now she's attacked by, I think, the Vanir, correct? And then because she's attacked, the Aesir fight back. Is that some of the? Did I read that right?
Gullveig is another name for Freya.
I see.
She was one of the Vanir during the Aesir-Vanir War in the Völuspá. Happened after the.
Say it again. The Aesir-Vanir War. She was killed by who then? Odin? Who killed Gullveig or Freya?
I don't know exactly. Maybe it doesn't say.
Well, you know what?
She was burned 3 times. She came back to life after each time.
Well, it doesn't exactly say who burned her, but I was wondering if you knew that. Give me a moment. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. You were saying something, Brother John?
The Aesir and Vanir are different tribes of gods. The Aesir, Vanir had a different culture. The Aesir were more into war and royalty, like king and queens.
I see.
Vanir are more into the earth, agriculture, magic.
Interesting.
So, Gullveig was probably burned because the Aesir did not like the Vanir's magical practices.
They did not like the Vanir's magical practices, so they took it out on Gullveig.
Yeah.
Interesting. So how would you describe the Vanir and the Aesir as far as the values of both people in the Völuspá?
I think the Aesir were, more masculine.
I see.
And then the Vanir are more feminine.
More feminine.
But of course, there are also female Aesir goddesses. But the Aesir, I guess they were descendants. They were like Odin's family, and then the Vanir were more like Freyr and Freya's family.
Interesting.
And Freyr and Freya were twins. Freyr was a god. Freya was a goddess. And they were let's see. The Aesir they were Odin helped create the 9 worlds.
I see.
where the universe is formed. Then Odin created first humans. Odin had two brothers, Billy and Day.
Who were they? What were
They
they?
created the first humans. Odin also did magic, but it was of a different type than the Vanir did.
I see. What kind of magic would you characterize Odin and the Aesir's magic?
Runes.
Runes. And
While the Aesir, yeah, they did runes and shape-shifting. The Vanir did different kind of magic called Seidr.
how do you spell that?
Seidr.
How do you spell that, friend?
Seidr.
Okay.
And it was like a trance. They would like spin a yarn around a spindle.
I see. And that was the part of their magic.
Yeah, it was associated with weaving.
So it really is the female power, the Vanir.
Yeah, that was something that the dead was weaving and spinning. They did that kind of magic. Seidr. Freyr might have done it too, I don't know. So maybe they didn't really have a single word for magic like we do today. Like this here is a word for magic. Might have been different from years' word for magic. So
Now, do you think this is a metaphor for actual civilizations and peoples that fought way back when? Or is it more of a metaphor of the values that the people in general chose one way or another? Or is it some combination?
there's some multiple theories about that.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is that the Aesir were the gods of the rulers,
I see.
warriors.
The warriors.
And the Vanir were the gods of the farmers.
Vanir was the guys of the farmers. Would you say the Vanir were older or younger than the Aesir, or are they equal in age?
It seems like the Aesir were older,
I see.
but it's hard to say.
I sometimes get the impression the Vanir were older, actually. They represent something older than. But I don't really, obviously I'm listening, very much deferring to what you say about it. I wanted to get to the Revelation a little bit. It's interesting that the woman in Revelation 12 is going through the pain of childbirth, and the serpent is trying to kill her. I think of that in parallel to both in the beginning of the Bible when God cursed women and made them travail in birth. It's said the same way in Revelation 12. And then Leviticus 12 is famously the part of the more patriarchal part of the Torah, the first books of the Bible, that kind of penalized women. So then women then become the queen of the universe in Revelation 12. But that's just the beginning of her problems. In those middle chapters of Revelation, she goes against a lot of different forces that seem to represent kind of like God being angry, or the bad part of God, the judgmental part of God, because that's destroyed. It's interesting that like in the Revelation, in the 17th chapter, we hear that the horns of the beast, the 10 horns, are each trying to have like power, and they curse the woman who is the whore of Babylon, who might have some connection then to basically how women are treated, both badly and goodly, and the power they have, but the power they are destroyed by. Revelation 12. So Revelation 17 is all about kind of our current part of the world. I might make another video about that. To tie it back in, Gullveig is kind of like, or Freya is kind of like the beautiful part of the culture of the world, and yet she's destroyed pretty early on in the war. Isn't she almost like the first person that gets hurt? It seems to be her getting burned 3 times. And then they go to war. Am I right about that, or am I missing it?
Yeah, Gullveig survives because she's basically Freya.
I see.
And Freya survives the Syrian War.
Kind of like how when the bride and the lamb get together in chapter 19 after the horror part of Babylon is destroyed by Babylon being destroyed, that we then become the woman, we all become the bride, we all become our mother, becoming one with God in Revelation 19, and then the rest of the chapters, is kind of what happens with Gullveig or Freya as she rises 3 times from the fire.
I think what they're talking about there with Gullveig surviving being burned 3 times is reincarnation.
I see.
Like the Norse, before they were Christian, they would cremate their dead.
I see.
And when somebody's burned, their soul leaves their body.
I see.
That's what they thought.
And what do you think it meant that she survives the burning and comes back at the end?
Probably reincarnation. They believed in reincarnation. I guess there's a similar thing about Thor's goat. Thor has 2 goats where they're eaten, and they come back to life the next day.
And what happens to them? How do they fit?
The cycle goes on.
How do they?
Endlessly.
How do they? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, they keep being eaten and they keep coming back to life.
There's
another thing. In Valhalla, there's a pig who is eaten every day. And the next morning, he comes back to life. Like every day, the warriors in Valhalla eat this pig for dinner.
I see.
And then the next day, overnight or in the morning, the meat regrows on the bones of the pig.
Interesting. And this is
it comes back to life. And then they can eat it again the next day.
And it's endless. It always just happens. Yeah. Isn't it interesting? I gotta say, the Lamb of God from the book of Revelation has not exact same thing going on, but in a way, it's the hero of the whole story, is the sacrificial animal that becomes the bride, or the husband, if you will, of all of us, the bride. So I find that interesting. Obviously, like the Jesus is in the Christian motif is kind of the food for people that they all kind of like go through. I find that's just interesting that obviously there's not a lamb, but it's a goats and in a pig. Have a similar thought, like, you know, to feed the chosen people, the people who carry on the will of what's righteousness by the story. The children of the people who believe in the Christ commandments would be fed by this lamb and become part of it, in the same way that these honored warriors in Valhalla. Are the warriors from Valhalla from the Vanir or from the Aesir, or are they from all places?
The warriors in Valhalla are dead humans.
Dead humans.
Called the Einherjar. And they were warriors who died in battle. They're picked up off the battlefield by Valkyries.
The Valkyries.
Taken to Valhalla.
Now, so they're not really of the Aesir or the Vanir. They're actually just people who might have been fighting for those people.
Yeah.
I see. Now, in the end, there's the vision that someone has, the seer, a lady who channels all this knowledge. Is she related to Gullveig or Freya at all? Or does she come from a different... How is she getting her power to have the visions? Is it explained or is it thought of in the culture or in the Völuspá itself?
The seeress who narrates the Völuspá seems to have existed before the beginning of the world. She's very old.
Yes.
And the reason she knows this stuff is because she remembers it.
Because she remembers it. She saw it.
At the beginning of the world.
Wow. Is she ever explained to who her name is or anything? Or is she kind of what every woman or any person who tells the story would embody as they tell the story?
I don't know.
Huh.
Völuspá doesn't, it's rather short. It's like about not more than 10 pages long.
Sure.
So it doesn't explain a lot of things in it.
I see that. Are you familiar with the Elder and Younger Eddas in general, or is your expertise is about the Völuspá?
I read the Eddas. There's two Eddas. There's the Poetic Edda and the Prose Edda.
I see.
Some people call those Elder and Younger Eddas.
Some of the Elder and Younger Eddas, yeah.
The actual title of them is the Prose Edda, the Poetic Edda.
I see.
And I guess the Poetic Edda is the elder one.
I see.
It's probably older than the Prose Edda.
Sure.
The Völuspá is the first chapter in the Poetic Edda.
Well,
so it kind of, it's like a basic statement of Norse beliefs. It kind of introduces people to what's in the rest of the book.
Now, one thing I really like is, does the seer represent the, current and eternal goddess voice in a way throughout all these gods and goddesses, that the priestess or man, probably someone who keeps the stories, would be able to then channel as they told the story? Is that understood that way, or could that be a way to look at it?
I don't know.
Just think about what you think about it.
The writing in the Poetic Edda, the authors, they don't. it's not known who they are.
It's not known who they are.
Yeah, this stuff was passed down orally for many generations before it went down. One thing similar to Völuspá is the three Norns. The Norns are the most powerful beings in the universe in Norse origin, more powerful than gods. And they decide the fates of gods and humans. And they don't really, doesn't really say where they're from or how old they are, except it says that they're from giant land.
Right, Jotunheim. I remember that from last year when you told the Völuspá.
Yeah, sometimes it calls it giant land, but it doesn't say when they were born. So probably maybe the Norns are just eternal.
Interesting.
And one big thing about the Völuspá is the universe goes through an eternal cycle of creation and destruction.
Right.
Like the beginning of the Völuspá is the creation of the current world, and then Ragnarok is the destruction of the current world.
I see.
And there was a world that existed before this one. That's where the Norns would have been. That's where the seeress who narrates the Völuspá, she would have been from that world. That's why she remembers the creation of this world. So there's some beings like the Norns who survive the creation and destruction of the worlds, of the universe. And then after Ragnarok, in the Völuspá, it says that the new universe, the new universe is created. And then at the last phrases in the Völuspá are describe the destruction of the next world.
I see.
It sounds there's like a dragon coming in. And this dragon brings on the destruction of the new world, the next world.
Which is very parallel to Revelation. There's a dragon in Revelation. And I just say that in Revelation 12:17, I think, there was a battle in heaven between, was it 12? I'll look that right now. Give me a moment. Yeah, 12:7 through 17. There's this whole discussion of the battle in heaven between the Archangel Michael and Satan, Shaitan. And isn't it interesting? Without saying the same images, obviously the different cultures are very different. It's written down at different time periods. But there's this thought that there was an old world where battles going on in that old world are still taking place in this world and might lead to the destruction of this world. I think it's just interesting to look at two different cultures wrestling with similar memories in a way, although not in a specific way, but like both cultures have this concept that was in the world before, and battles going on in that world affect this world, and there'll be a future world.
Yeah.
Could you describe the dragon in the Völuspá as much as you'd like to?
The dragon is called Nidhogg.
Could you spell that, friend?
Nidhogg.
Okay, Nidhogg. Okay, and what kind of things does Nidhogg do?
Um,
Who does the
Mainly
yeah, go
destructive things. He eats the roots of Yggdrasil, the world tree,
the world tree, Yggdrasil.
and eats the dead.
Hmm.
And he brings about the destruction of the next world.
Hmm. What ends up happening at the end of the end? Like, I remember from the last time, when you were reading the Völuspá about a year ago, you had said that the Nidhogg comes kind of the end of the story, kind of like comes out and kind of almost out of nowhere and eats, the roots of the tree, hurts and eats the dead. Almost the last line almost is the aftermath of that creature's attack.
Yeah.
What do you think that means as far as the thought of the culture about death and about the destruction of the world? Is there like hope at the end? Because it seems to be like a new, almost using the same words as the beginning, that there would be a settlement, there'd be brothers who or people or giants or whoever it was building it. Eventually, it said there'll be another settlement. Is that how do you characterize the hope of the new world, if any, that comes out of the Norse Scripture?
It seems to be kind of like this world. When it comes to an end, like all worlds do. I think the Norse, they did not have an idea of progress like we do today. Progress is the idea that the future will be better than the past.
Right.
They did not think that. They thought that the future would be the same as the past. That it wouldn't be better.
I see. I think of the Greco-Roman world, the pagan Greco-Roman world, believed in the progression of ages from golden to silver to iron. And we're in the iron now. And it was considered the crappiest one. Like, way back in the day, it was great. In the middle, it was fine. And now it's just crap. Now it's iron and war, where it used to be gold and silver stuff. Is that kind of, I mean, obviously those two cultures went to war with each other, so I'm not saying they're the same. But it's interesting that the book of Revelation also promises there'll be a lot of terrible times, the tribulations, that people will get worse and worse and worse. But there is this hope that it will be better at the end. But you kind of postulate here that it'll not be better or worse, it'll just be, again, a new world.
Yeah.
I see. And what do you think this says about the folk and what they thought? Do you think seems to me, looking at that, people have a way of kind of having a kind of a mature acceptance of the world where it didn't, it was never going to be perfect or heaven, but maybe there'll be better times than the hellish times. You'll go through these wars and battles, but eventually it'll settle down and a new world will be. And of course, there'll be another world that will be destroyed after this, which gives you kind of almost suggests a Stoic or even a Buddhist concept of peace with the change of the world, and urges you then to probably, pursue a moderate world, pursue as good a world or as indulgent a world or as happy a world as you can in the face of death.
Yeah. The Norse kind of accepted the world the way it was.
Right. They accepted the world the way it was.
Yeah. They were the opposite of Gnostics who hated the world.
Interesting. Could you speak more on that? So they kind of loved the world, but they also knew its limits. Whereas, say, Gnostic or other people, various other kinds of folk in the beginning of the Christian era, kind of had a lot of contempt for the world, in the immaterial world.
Yeah. The Norse gods were gods of things that were in the world.
Right.
Like things in nature or things in human society. The Norse were not ascetic. They did not have monks or nuns. Did celibacy or fasting or
mortification of the body and things like that. The folk in the Norse would probably think that is rather odd. Like, why would you hurt yourself deliberately when there's disease and war and everything can hurt you anyway? Why not enjoy every day and the good pleasures you can find?
Yeah, that's what they thought. They wanted to enjoy every day that they had. Like they enjoyed food, drink, music, sex, and all that.
Sex, sure.
They didn't feel guilty about it, like a Gnostic would.
Or a Nicene Christian certainly would. Really, the whole idea of how Christianity was preached from an early time, making a mistake, not seeing the goddess world and the God as being, married to each other and sharing love together, both the world and the spirit, but having them fight at odds and be at odds is a uniquely, I think, Christian error. And of course, Islam later on corrected some of that, but didn't correct all of it. And I think in Islam, like, there was never a fight between science and the faith. Faith actually made people say, why don't you go build beautiful things for God? Why don't you learn mathematics so you could do that? Why don't you learn astronomy for God? Whereas in the Christian concept, there was a battle between what their church was and, discovering the world of science. Which goes back, I think, and you could probably speak to this if you'd like to, the kind of atrocities that were probably put on the Norse people when they were being forced into Christianity was a kind of a complete hatred of the world. Whether the folks in the Norse world were necessarily studying it as the Islamic scientists were, it didn't matter. They were enjoying and participating and being part of the world in a pleasurable, adult, mature way. Whereas I think the dominating force of the imperial Christian church, the imperial Nicene Creed Christian churches, were very much dedicated to eradicating that love of the world.
Yeah.
Would you feel comfortable talking about any of those, the kind of atrocities that you might be aware of that, for instance, when Rome went into Celtica, still pagan Rome, but they slaughtered the people. They slaughtered the Druids. They slaughtered the ancestors of, say, the Irish and the English, the people who used to live in France now. They brutally destroyed their entire culture. I know there were similar things going on during the introduction of during the introduction of Christian into Norse lands, and probably even the pagan Rome fighting into that land.
Yeah, there were atrocities in Scandinavia during the conversion to Christianity. Well, they also had the Inquisition happened there too.
Inquisition
after
happened.
The conversion in the Middle Ages. It wasn't as bad as the Inquisition in places further south, like Spain.
Sure, Italy.
But there were a few witch burnings in Scandinavia. Another thing that was kind of interesting is that Protestantism happened in Scandinavia, in Germany. It's kind of the people there kind of pushed back against the asceticism of the Catholic Church, and they wanted to enjoy things like food and drink and that other stuff. So it was kind of a Protestantism, like it pushed the movement to return. In some ways, it was kind of a way to return to that ancient pre-Christian way of enjoying things
of the earth.
On earth.
Well, it's
interesting. But it didn't go all the way.
It didn't go all the way. That's very cool. I like what you say, because that, part of what, our church tries to do, along with a lot of other people who are trying to do this, is to try to go all the way back to the fact before there was a break between mother and father. Going back to the pre-Christian times of, the kings of Israel and Judah, that some of them decided, hey, we're going to get rid of the goddess. And over time, the Christians kind of inherited that and continued even more contemptuously against the earth. But Protestantism and the paganism of the last 100 years, and the last interest in, straight out paganism, has been kind of a good way to kind of bring this two back together, bring the mother and the father back together. But I really think it's something that we have to continue to do. And one of the reasons I really am grateful to you for, talking to me about this stuff and letting other people know about it, is that there's a lot of wisdom in the pre-Christian and the other than Christian scriptures that can be brought together with Christianity and Islam and the Abrahamic and Buddhism, bringing that into, and kind of have all faith solution to the problem. No one people have all the answers, but if you look at all the people, that's a great bunch of answers that you can get talking. A great bunch of questions at the very least,
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that, the book of Revelation specifically is very thought about now. Because of weird things that are happening in the world, where the entire ruling class seems to be kind of in the Whore of Babylon mind. And I don't mean, when I say Whore of Babylon, I'm not saying any sex worker, because really sex workers in the Bible are constantly the heroines. They're constantly the heroes. It's the fact that the Whore of Babylon is kind of like the Madam of Babylon, kind of like the lady who, kind of like Ghislaine Maxwell kind of person who isn't herself doing anything, but she traffics other people into doing, and then she knows what all the leaders do and all their kinks and strange things that they're closeted about. Well, if they just could love the goddess, you would have and love the love inside themselves, they would never be in closets, and they would never have a world based on such incredible evil. They would have healthy sexualities like a lot of people do. Even a lot of people without a lot of money end up being a lot more normal.
That's kind of like the only person alive, I guess, right now, because he was in jail because of the Epstein scandal, is a woman, and the men who actually did these perverted things, they're not in jail. One of them's in the White House.
Right, that's right. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's sad and interesting.
And they jailed Epstein, who facilitated, and Maxwell, who facilitated these things, organized it, but it seems like also the perpetrators who did the deeds, they're not in jail.
They're all over the ruling class of the country and the world. There's a famous...
like Epstein and Maxwell were just the people, the fall guys.
Right, the fall guys.
They just throw under the bus, put in jail.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that they end up with all the blame when in fact Trump and Clinton and Hillary Clinton were probably all there, doing all kinds of things, even with each other, let alone with all these poor children that they kind of caught and brought in.
Yeah.
But that is exactly what I think people are looking at, and I think I'm going to do another video sometime soon about specifically Revelation 17, because everything right before the destruction of the evils of Babylon, the destruction of the evils of this, not healthy sexuality again. Really, I think Revelation is talking about healthy sexuality being hoped for, and the really unhealthy sexuality to do with power and rape, and how the second is condemned by God, but that the first is still there. The regular, the humanness, the mother becomes the queen of the universe in Revelation 12, and then by Revelation 19 and 20, she becomes all of us, loving the Lamb and loving God and the Christ and all that. I think it's really kind of beautiful as a hope, because all of it is really kind of things inside us. And I think this will be the last thing I'd like to just ask you. Do you think there's an internal thing going on, talked about within the Völuspá and the Eddas, that are about something inside? In other words, Odin might represent something inside of us. Freya might represent something inside of us. The Nidhogg, the dragon, might represent something inside of us. That if we do it the right way, we could do it this way. We could do it, if we go with the destruction, it'll go that. Do you think any of that might be subconscious mind being talked about poetically and magically for the insights that it would generate? Or do you think it's mostly still kind of a narrative of, external things?
Yeah, it's about external things. The gods in Norse religion, they're definitely external. I guess the Norse, they might not have dealt much with what was inside their head. It was more, the gods were external, and you had to do things for them to get something from them.
Right. Well, that's as I say, I mean, I think I could make a case that pretty much most of the mythic world, most of the spiritual stories that humans have told for thousands and tens of thousands of years among the different peoples of the world, have an element of internal too. Because everything, to use the Buddhist insight, everything external is internal, internal is external. But that goes on a certain level. I think I'm going to, obviously agree with your greater expertise. I'm not going to argue with it at this point, because you're probably, right. I mean, you're definitely right about what you know about it, which is that it does have a lot to do with the real world and the nature, and the idea of the forces of nature should be understood as external to the people. And part of what Christianity does wrong, what I think a lot of faiths do wrong, is they ignore the world. So maybe not to say it's all in your head, maybe it is in fact outside of your head, and that's a big point of what the thing is.
There's one thing I wanted to mention about the seer and the veneer. There's a theory that when the Romans invaded Germany 2,000 years ago, there's a theory that says that the seer originated among the tribes in Germany who were fighting the Romans.
Interesting.
And that the German tribes, they adopted Odin from a Roman god called Mithras.
Mithras?
Mithras has a lot in common with Odin, and the Aesir would have originally been the war gods and goddesses who assisted the Germans in their fight against the Romans. And then hundreds of years later, the Aesir went to Scandinavia.
I see.
Like those gods spread north from Germany to Scandinavia hundreds of years later. And then, so originally in Scandinavia, The Romans never
got into Scandinavia.
Yeah, they never got there. At least not in large numbers, not as an army. So originally in Scandinavia, before there were the seer gods, there was the veneer gods.
Oh, very clever.
So before the seer came to Scandinavia, there was a long period of peace and prosperity. It was called Frodi's Peace. It was named after King Frodi, who presided during the peace.
Could you spell the name Frodi?
Frodi.
Thank you.
And then when the seer came to Scandinavia, Scandinavian society changed. The rulers became wealthier and they built larger buildings. They started building these fortified settlements with walls around them. And that's when wars started in Scandinavia. Like the kings in Scandinavia went to war against each other. Started worshiping the seer while the farmers were worshiping the veneer.
That's interesting, friend, because that seems to be kind of a commentary, not so much on the internals of a person. Maybe I was too limited to say it that way. But really the spiritual reality of war thought and war culture against the older culture of spinning and being at peace and being of the feminine virtues and that kind of magic. And really, I think the message is those two battles fighting will destroy the world. And this is how we can make that understood, by telling these stories, this story specifically. I think the same thing is true of Revelation, because Revelation is talking about the embattlement and the kind of besiegement of the early Christians, the early Nazarene Jewish people who accepted Greek people and then everybody into their sect, going up against Rome, which of course, maybe they were the ones who created the battle that created the Assyr. They're also the ones who were, Caesar, 666, Nero, all that, was destroying the seven hills, the seven heads of the dragon, were destroying and empowering and yet destroying the women, the whore of Babylon power. And when that whole empires fall, then there would be the chance of a new world in Revelation 19 and the rest of it. Friend, I really appreciate this. I think that that's a really good way we could end it. Is there anything else you'd like us to say before we leave it that? I think it really to have people realize that the battle between the war mindset in a culture and the peaceful, more feminine virtues of the goddess, they're going to keep battling as we have our culture war out there. And the only way out is, in fact, to try to find some peace, because otherwise these forces will destroy each other and the world. And maybe we can't fight that. Maybe we can't settle that. Maybe we should just kind of strap in and let it happen. I mean, not let it happen, but do the best we can to survive it in the ruins and build something new. There's another way to see it if we can't stop the fight. But surely if we don't have tolerance for each other and love for each other, then there's no hope.
Yeah.
Well, God bless you, John. Is there anything else you want to say before we conclude?
No.
I really appreciate this. I appreciate the spirituality you've offered and bring. All the folks who have brought in different ways, especially this last year, a lot of different kinds of folks have brought different multi-gods, like we'll call it polytheists, but also seeing the monotheists in it. We have friends who brought the Orishas. We have friends long ago who brought the Kemetic gods. We have... obviously you have brought knowledge of the Norse gods. So I really appreciate you, friend. And I appreciate, this church, and I appreciate this community, and I appreciate you again. Thank you, John, so much. God bless you, John.